And I didn't spend 12 years of my life away from my family to move this community forward, to build a strong foundation for the future, to watch it squandered. And a lot of the things I'm seeing are backsliding. And I believe in this community. My heart is still here. And I think people make their decisions about whether or not government is even worth their time based on the experience they have in their own community. And so I plan to lean in and do the work of county judge in the same manner, with the same focus and energy as I did as mayor.
Welcome to Breaking Ground SA, a RECSA podcast where we dig into real estate deals, developments, and decision makers shaping San Antonio. I'm your host, Stephanie Reyes, President and CEO, joined by my co-host, local policy expert, Rob Killen. Let's break some ground. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of Breaking Ground SA, coming to you from the IBC Bank studio. Our sponsor today is IRC Capital Residential, the builder's capitalist. Our guest is Mayor Ron Nirenberg. In this episode, we'll talk about his success as mayor, what he thinks the county should look like, and his workout routine. Thanks for tuning in. Mayor Ron Nirenberg, welcome to the IBC studio for Breaking Ground SA.
It's great to be here. This is beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
I'm honored to be asked.
We decided to launch this podcast because we felt like we weren't telling enough of our story as an organization. All the work that we do and how we work with the city is really key, and you've been a big part of that. So we're going to get into that today.
Great.
And then we'll pivot over to why you want to be county judge. You know, we're really excited to hear about that. But first and foremost, I think Rob Killen over here, my co-host, wants to know, what is your workout routine? And did you get it in already this morning?
That really was my top question.
Actually, this week has been a little light on sleep, so I had to do either or. So it'll be a late one tonight for me. But I'm generally doing something every day. And I am a creature of the heavy athletics. And so it's built around the resistance training, and it's still very much powerlifting style. I train a muscle group once a week, and so I go through the whole body once a week. And I split my routine in about 5 days so I can keep the time down. And then the days that I'm not actually doing strength training, I'm doing some cardio. All of it is in my garage, which is a byproduct of the COVID pandemic, but actually is the best alternative for me because it's always open.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when I think you at the gym, I'm wondering, so do you have detail with you? Are they working out too? Are they standing there while you're lifting? How does that work?
So I quite often, when I was at the city council or in the mayor's office, I would be training in the city facility, and there's a decent gym in the public safety headquarters. So I would be training with police and fire, in the same space quite often. The city now has a gym that's open to city employees, a big part of wellness and preventative health. So I'd be in those city facilities if I got a little window break. But no, it's just I'm solo trainer. I used to have a trainer a long, long time ago, which is good for motivation. But it's just me and my routine. It's my sanctuary. It's a central component to my overall well-being because it's as much a part of my mental health regimen than anything else at this point.
So how did you get into health, working out, bodybuilding, personal training? What motivated you to get into that?
There's a couple of things. One is I am a child of the 80s, and I grew up late 80s, early 90s watching Saturday Night Live every Saturday night.
We're not too far apart in age.
And right after Saturday Night Live, American Gladiators came out. And so when I was a young kid, I thought, I can do that. I want to do that. And so I got a weight set for the first time and worked so hard, I burned myself out. And right around 18 or 19, I was not happy. I was very underweight. I had been in wrestling for a time in high school, weight controlled, so I was underweight and I wanted to get healthy. And so I went to go see a trainer and got on a strict regimen and started learning how to do this kind of training. And so that's when it really started. And I got into competitive weightlifting actually in college, actually graduate school, more of as an academic pursuit because I'm very interested in the formation of identity for these people that are always in the gym. And so I ended up writing a thesis about cultural identity and things like that. But as part of it, I got hooked up with folks here in San Antonio as part of the study. And the Olympic gym crowd became a second family to me, and they got me into powerlifting and other heavy athletics. That's been a passion of mine. It's kept me focused my entire life, and it's very much, again, part of my overall well-being at this point.
Interesting. And you have a son. He's
I do.
17 now?
He's 17, and he is living and going to school in Japan for the year. He's with the Rotary Club on a youth exchange program, living his dream and growing into the world, and is figuring out that's what he wants to do in college. Very proud of him.
How is that for you and Erica, him being away?
You know, we miss him. He's our only child. We're kind of a team of three, and so we unexpectedly are empty nesters a little bit early. So we're coping with that. The hardest part is he's going through his college application process, and that's an emotional roller coaster for the kid as well as the family, and we've got to do that remotely. But I'm so proud of him. We check in. He does his uploads of his videos and his one-on-one social media with us. But he's doing great. We're very proud of him. He's speaking, reading, writing in Japanese. And so he's building a skill set that I'm encouraging him to think about international business. So he wants to do policy type work, potentially in trade, but he's got a real skill now in language and international relations. So we'll see where he wants to do with his life.
That's great. So you grew up in Austin and moved to San Antonio for college.
Yep.
And whether Jonah comes back or not, we all want our kids to grow up, go away to school, and then maybe come back. So you came to San Antonio for training. What made you think about San Antonio as a choice? Was Trinity specific, or you like being close to home?
I didn't, honestly. Again, child of the 80s, I grew up thinking college was like the Dead Poet Society. And so I was thinking about going to the East Coast, where I was actually born. We became Texans when I was 3 years old. And so when I came down to Trinity, it was really about, my dad encouraging me. We had visited San Antonio a few times. I'd actually been to the Trinity campus for a program once, but I knew really not a whole lot about San Antonio. It was a beautiful place, but not some place I can envision myself living. But when I got to campus, because, again, he convinced me to, this is a great school. You probably get a better education for less money than going to the East Coast. Mm-hmm. I checked it out, and I immediately felt like I was in that classical educational experience that I was imagining. And so I ended up enrolling there. It's a wonderful school, great faculty. I got to know a lot of people, and I fell in love with it. And in the process, I was doing some things in journalism that got me out in the community. And very unexpectedly, within 4 years, I had fallen in love with not just Trinity, but San Antonio. And that's why Trinity is always part of my heart. It was through that window that I got to know the city. We have been in the process of bursting that Trinity bubble. It's very much integrated in the community now. But it was through that platform of education that I got to know the city, fall in love with it. And as you said, Rob, I want my son to feel the same way about my community. Whether he chooses to live here one day or not, hopefully he'll see it as a place that he can find his happiness.
And you're now teaching there. So how proud are you to go back to your alma
It's so weird. Literally 30 years, almost to the day that I stepped foot for the first time at Trinity. I'm back walking around campus. Some of the buildings are different, but the energy is the same. The students, the faculty, there's just a thirst for understanding the world. It's a very dynamic, diverse environment. So that is very much the same, and I feel the same too. To be honest with you, when you walk onto campus as a new college freshman, you've got everything in the world to prove. You're nervous as hell because you don't know what to expect. You're going to work your tail off. At least I did. I was very regimented. They told me for every 1 hour in class, I needed 3 hours of reading. So I scripted out every single day because I wanted to make sure I was working hard enough. So I almost feel the same way. I'm with all of these incredible faculty and students. I don't want to let them down. And so, for the couple of months before the semester began, this last semester, I was nervous. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. I want this class to go well. And so it's great. I love it. It is my second home.
Are students pulling you aside on campus? Hey, Mayor, hey, Mayor.
Some are, some are. My first semester class was called How a Modern City Works. I describe it as sort of junior LSA. So we're going out in the community, learning from institutions, learning from leaders, getting connected with people. And I was encouraging them, look, these are leaders of major organizations, sectors, institutions. They're sitting across the table from Rudy Garza, for instance, the chambers of commerce. And so I want them comfortable enough to be in the room. I want them to feel like they belong and that they can ask questions. And so part of that also is our interaction. I think some of them signed up because they saw a former mayor teaching it. But at the end of the semester, I want them to feel like I'm a resource and they have a unique opportunity to really experience and learn from the leaders of the community, but they should feel like they belong and that it is their responsibility to be part of that.
That's interesting. Now, would you say that's the message you want to get across to your students because that is what you valued and kind of how you led as mayor?
Yes, and it's also part of my career. So for a decade, I worked at the Nirenberg Public Policy Center doing municipal policy work and civic engagement work for the Pew Charitable Trust and the Carnegie Foundation in 22 different cities across the country, working in high school populations, working with media and elected officials. And it's very much about helping young people understand how government works, how local government works, specifically, and give them the tools necessary to be actors in shaping their world. And so it's interesting, somewhere in the first few weeks of teaching this class, I realized my mission as a professor in these classes is not a whole lot different than it was as mayor of San Antonio. My interest in being there is to create a pathway for us to realize a better future in our community. In this case, in the class, helping young leaders realize the potential. In mayor, it's a little bit more broad in terms of the impact, but it's still very much about creating the conditions for us to realize our aspirations as a community.
That's great. I think we share a similar idea with RECSA. We have, young professionals or even students at UTSA, Alma College's Trinity now has a real estate department that we're starting to work with and build a program with them to support that effort. But, we envision them graduating, getting picked up by, a company, joining RECSA, getting involved in RECSA, going through our leadership development program and understanding the value of getting involved, staying engaged, participating on a city committee, PC TAC or a commission, anything where they can contribute and building that leadership along the way and leaving a mark on this community.
Well, and that participation gives you personal investment into the community. It makes you more likely to be engaged and be willing to go through the hard stuff too. And it's interesting, I was having coffee with Adam and Madison over at Overland yesterday, and they were talking about architecture is not their business. It's the platform they use to achieve what they're attempting to achieve, which is, a community that thrives together. Those are my words, not theirs. But essentially, they didn't view architecture as the ultimate end for their work. It is the platform from which they work from to achieve their goals and their ambitions. And so I very much feel the same way. Politics, education, real estate. I think we all kind of have a sense of a destination that goes beyond just the tools we're using to get there.
Yeah, we're all trying to make the community better.
Absolutely.
We just had Randy Smith with Weston Urban come on the podcast recently, and reading the mission of Weston Urban was something along the lines of, we want to build the community our kids want to come back to, or something similar to that. But it was similar to what you're saying, and we're seeing that with a lot of our members. It's about the people. It's about the community. It's not about the building per se. It's about building this community and the people that live in it. So I want to pivot. When you came on as mayor and you did all of your terms, was there anything that you were most proud of when you were mayor that you want to share?
Obviously, I'm proud of I'm proud of all the work. I mean, there's ups and downs. I think we have moved this community forward in significant ways. What I'm most proud of, though, is that the foundation of progress has changed. We're in a much firmer foundation for sustained progress in this community we ever have. And one of the areas that sticks out to me, though, is the conversation around economic opportunity. And you've heard me say we have one of the most well-resourced workforce pipelines in the country. And I'm not just talking about ready to work, although that is a huge portion of it. We can't forget the generation of adult workers who are still raising children in households, producing more poverty if we don't give them a pathway to economic mobility. That's what we're dealing with Ready to Work. But from pre-K for SA, which is now expanded to 3-year-olds, to a K through 12 system that has some incredible innovation going on despite the challenges. Things like the CAST system, which is evolutions of opportunity, to the Alamo Promise program, which now provides free community college to any high school graduate in the county. We have a workforce pipeline that has been built that is now connected to employers and providers, but that's a conversation about economic opportunity. Everyone in this community, regardless of where they live, where they come from, their circumstances, if they have the drive to achieve and to get career mobile, there's an opportunity here. We've built a housing strategy now that is in full swing. We're changing the game on transportation, finally bringing mass transit to San Antonio. We're even rebuilding the airport. But all of these things are built around the notion that everyone in this community should have an opportunity to thrive. And I think that foundation has been set in a way that it never has before in this community. And in 20, 30 years, that's when the time is to start grading the papers of what we've been doing over the last 10 years. But I think that's when you'll see the full impact.
Let me ask a different question. So you had 4 years as a councilman, District 8, where I lived. Yeah. You were my councilman for 4 years, and then my mayor for 8. So you had 12 years on council. You did a lot, accomplished a lot. With COVID right in the middle, I'm sure we'll get to COVID in a minute. Yeah. But was there something that you didn't get to that you said, look, if I had another 2 years, if I had another 4 years, we could have done this?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get overly political, but it was unfair to saddle Project Marvel on a new mayor and council. That should have been done sooner. And those big crowning moments in which, to me, are a test of the hypothesis of whether or not people are seeing San Antonio as a growth market. I mean, those need to be moved effectively, efficiently. And so that's really the only one. But I've always viewed this, and I give credit to all of the mayors before me, including Mayor Taylor. This is a relay race. You have to recognize that nobody starts at Genesis 1. The work that we've done to change our city charter was coming on the foundation of other things. We're indexed now pay. We'll never have to talk about professional salaries again for city council. We can keep up and make sure that people have, an opportunity to focus solely on the work of the community. That came because Ivy took a risk on putting that on the ballot in 2014, I think. So everything is iterative. Henry Cisneros, on his way out of office in 1988, wrote a paper saying we need a comprehensive housing plan for San Antonio. Became HUD secretary after that. For 30 years, we didn't really do a lot. We bit around the edges, but we finally created a comprehensive housing plan. Did we invent the idea? No. We did the work to bring it to the next level. We've been talking about the airport for 40 years. Did we invent the idea that you can build a world-class airport right where it's at? No. But we took the next step and started studying it, focusing on it, building the coalition to build it, and now we're doing it. Same thing with transit. I mean, all of these things are iterative. The arrogance sometimes of people in political power to think that they came up with every idea is what we have to get past to be able to bring people together to actually move things to the next level. And that's what I've been focused on, is the work never ends. You take the baton, you pass it off, try to leave it in as good a place as possible. But, we're all part of the process of making this a place where our kids would want to come back to.
Really good comments. I want to note that the Real Estate Council was at every public hearing, every press conference, fully in support of Props A and B, Project Marvel, all throughout, and had great conversations with the city's team all throughout to do what we could to support, because we believe in that vision as well.
I totally agree.
Let me ask you this. Talk about passing the baton.
Yeah.
So you've passed the baton.
I think I know where you're going, Stephanie.
Are you pleased with how that Mayor Jones is handling Project Marvel?
Well, obviously, we disagree on some of the details. I have been strongly vocal about the need for a downtown entertainment zone since Taylor Amy walked into my office and with Cheryl to talk about doing a downtown urban campus. And that was that point that I think Project Marvel really started to move, because we have the Alamo project, we've got now UTSA coming in, we've got Riverwalk improvements, a to-be scheduled convention center improvements, Alamo Dome needs upgrade. We got a lot of things going on, one of the most enchanting downtowns in the world, and we've got to start thinking more holistically. Transportation needs, how do we actually start working on land use with the hemisphere redevelopment so that we can pave the way for sports to come back to San Antonio. I'm very strongly of the belief that these are the things that make our city worth coming back to for our kids. And if we can do it without compromising the basics, housing, workforce, transportation, we should be doing them. We have to be able to do, as Thad said, both and. Mm-hmm. And so I am not shy about it. I took a lot of arrows about it. The challenge was, again, transparency and waiting for the county to actually bring a plan forward where we could all bring it public. So all that being said, there is some differences, obviously, in our approach to Project Marvel. So we're going to disagree on a few things, but I think it's hard. Mayor Hardberger, Phil, told me one time early on, there's one truism in City Hall as mayor. If you're in that seat, there's 5 people to your left, 5 people on your right who think they can do your job better than you can. And so in a transition period, that's going to be the case. And so Mayor Jones is getting her feet on the ground. I would not underestimate her capacities. She clearly has a lot of support in the community. We just have to start working together on finding common ground, building relationships, which takes time. And she needs a partner, frankly, at the county to help with that. And, I had the benefit of having a great partner in Judge Wolf. He was very collaborative. We met every week. We met every day and every hour during COVID, but he was a partner. He didn't view his job as separate from mine. We were collaborators. That's what she needs. That's the only way our community will thrive. And that's, in part, I think, what is on the ballot in March.
Is that what motivated you to run?
What motivated me to run, so it was a long period of contemplation and prayer, because I did not expect to be doing this, but I didn't come into politics because I have a dream of going to the White House or going to the governor's office. I came into politics when my son was born, and I started attending the SA 2020 tables, talking to all these people in different sectors across the table from Carrie Baker Wells at the time with the Chamber of Commerce, talking about where we want our community to go in the next 10, 15 years and what in our capacities we can do to move it there. And as I started attending these meetings as an interested citizen and as at that point a manager in broadcast with a platform to help, I realized I enjoy doing this more than I do my day job. And so she encouraged me, Carrie encouraged me to apply for LSA. I got in, and as that kept building, I realized, I need to do this. And so I remember going home one day to Erica and saying, I think I need to run for city council. Because that's...
What did that conversation go like?
She told me, because you've asked me, I realize you've already made up your mind. And so, it was difficult. Our son was, I think, one and a half. Reed had announced his this would be the end for him. And so that was an opener. But, at the time, it was $20 a week, and we were trying to raise a new family. And so it was a bit of a jumping off a bridge kind of thing for us, not unlike a decision to have a child. But thank God we had focused on getting rid of our debt after school, and we had done that. And we had I had an opportunity now with Erica's buy-in to run for city council, and I did. But get back to your question, what has motivated me to run for office is that I see all the challenges in the world, all the challenges in our state. If we have a hope of changing any of that, if we want to change the world, we got to start with our front porch. And there are a lot of challenges here, unnecessary challenges that can be solved by focusing on the work, the local work. That's what I know how to do. It requires coalition and team building, requires collaboration. And I didn't spend 12 years of my life away from my family to move this community forward, to build a strong foundation for the future, to watch it squandered. And a lot of the things I'm seeing are backsliding. And I believe in this community. My heart is still here. And I think people make their decisions about whether or not government is even worth their time based on the experience they have in their own community. And so I plan to lean in and do the work of county judge in the same manner, with the same focus and energy as I did as mayor. It is a life to be able to represent a community and do everything you can to move it forward. There's quite a lot of opportunity right now in our community to do that. We're undergoing extreme transformation. We've got to deal with that, but I'm very excited. But it is this community and the opportunities here that have driven me into making this decision.
You know, Ron, I always see government, to some extent, just a series of carrots and sticks. City has a lot of carrots and a lot of sticks. The county has...
It's a real estate perspective. I can understand it.
It is, really. I mean, you know, not that you're picking winners and losers, but you have the opportunity, again, from an economic development standpoint, to regulate or to encourage or incentivize. Yeah. And the county just has fewer tools than, say, the city did. And I think Nelson Wolf, we all know Nelson. Yeah. Nelson was a great partner for you and is supporting you on your efforts right now. And he came from the mayor's office to private sector and then to the county judgeship when Cindy Cryer stepped down. And he managed to make that office his own and use it more as a bully pulpit more than anything else, and work on big economic development issues despite not having the same level of resources. So how do you see the difference in the role of judge and mayor, given the limited resources, both, again, on the regulatory side as well as the incentive side? Yeah,
well, the county has an incredible convening power. You know, when you think about the number of jurisdictions that do collaborate or need to collaborate with the county, you know, all 2.2 some odd million people that live in this region, Bexar County residents, we work in concert with those 26 municipalities. We also are the only semblance of government in unincorporated areas. And so there's a tremendous amount of convening power to help create unified action and a vision. And that's where I think we first need to go. The reality is it shouldn't matter if you live in the hinterland of Bexar County, which is rural and residents who go out there want to keep it like that, or you live in the urban areas of, you know, San Antonio. You should, in 2026, have the opportunity to live a quality life and be safe. And I think we have all the resources and ingenuity to do that if we collaborate on some unified goals. You're right. It is carrots and sticks, and there's not a whole lot of sticks at the county, which is okay because, as you know, people don't always respond very well to sticks. We've got to find ways to incentivize those kinds of outcomes where we have proper sanitation services, effective public safety, where we have strong basic infrastructure. And we can do that with a number of different tools. You know, there is the power of public improvement districts and giving developers the opportunity to create pathways to build the kinds of things and connect the kinds of things that are necessary for a community to be built out there and still thrive 20 years later. There's the authority given by the state with assistance to communities who want to govern themselves. And, you know, in an era of non-annexation, we've got to think about helping other communities that are densifying get their own authority through incorporation. So there's a lot of different ways we can go about just the development process to make this so that we're not building colonias in Bexar County in 2026. And I think we can do that without sticks. From an economic development standpoint, this is what I've been doing for a very long time as a council member, but certainly as mayor, working regionally. My relationship with Mayor Adler and now Mayor Watson is very strong with Judge Brown. Up and down the corridor, we created the South Texas Alliance of Cities, not mayors. We intentionally called it cities because we knew our economic development and potential and political futures were tied. So collaborating across the region to create workforce watersheds to see the labor distribution and to attract the businesses that we know are looking for large lot development, strong, stable, affordable utilities, a population that's growing and that happens to be younger than most, and in a place that we're making the right investments in education and quality of life. I mean, these are jobs, mayor and judge, that require foresight, vision, and proactiveness. And when we've thrived as a community, they're working hand in hand, which I will do, and they are not waiting for the future to wash over them. Nelson worked in what he called the weirdest form of government on earth. And he's right. You've got elected officials that control their own pockets of services. They have quasi-budget authority, although all the purse strings go through the court. So you have to find ways of diplomatically getting people to move in the same direction, building coalitions. But at the same time, you've got to be visionary. You've got to lead the troops. This is a lead from the front position. And Nelson was effective because he was creative, he was forceful when he needed to be, and he could articulate a vision. And that's what I hope I've demonstrated as mayor, and that's what I think can get us to the next level. We can't be content with painting inside the numbers if we're going to be competing with the other counties who have already figured this out. And oh, by the way, this is not new. These are not new ideas. Texas is growing at the fastest rate of any in the country. And that growth, like it or not, even though we have an infill strategy in San Antonio, that growth is largely going into suburban and unincorporated areas. That's going to be the way it is. Coupled with the tax code changes, which are largely leaning on new growth, as well as the clamp down on municipal authority for what I call partisan reasons. But regardless, that's what it is. The importance of having strong, proactive, visionary leadership at the county level of government is critical, and especially at a time when we're transforming, urbanizing. Life is changing in Bexar County for people that live outside and inside. And so we've got to be able to have folks who are anticipating those changes and getting ahead of those. We can't wait for that. Other counties are already figuring it out. And if we wait back and we stick to our 90s pace of life, we're going to continue to get lapped. And I don't want that to happen.
So when you're on the campaign trail and you're talking to residents, do you find that they do understand the difference of mayor and Bexar County judge, or do you have to consistently educate them on the role?
Well, that's part of the issue, and that you're going to go into old philosophy of governing here. I believe strongly in transparency. Frankly, if more people participated in government, which is why I supported Mayor Jones' effort to move elections in November, if more people participated, we get better outcomes. I strongly believe that. But you're right. Not a lot of people. All the attention's on the city. There's a lot more drama. There's a lot more interest. The papers and the media love to cover the city because there's more action there on the surface. If you look at what's going on at the county, not the dramatic stuff, not the stuff that's going wrong, but just look at what's happening, the opportunities in the health system, which are one of the chief pillars of economic mobility. The importance of the county working towards infrastructure security, the election system, and the fact that we are talking about the front lines of democracy. All these systems of your life that determine your quality of life all over this region are at the county. If we had more focus, awareness about what the county does, there would be less confusion. And you're right, there is a lot of confusion. It's not necessarily about the difference between a county judge and a mayor. It's really what the heck is the county judge to begin with. Just getting people to understand, this is what they call a county mayor in Tennessee or a county executive in most places. This is not a judicial position. And if I have one criticism directly, what's going on in this campaign is that there is an intent to confuse people, that it might actually be a judicial position. It's not. This is the chief executive of the county, again, with the budgetary authority in conference with the commissioner's court. You have to build coalitions. You got to manage. You've got to articulate a strategy and a vision for the organization. You've got to manage HR issues. You've got to anticipate market issues. This is as far removed from a judicial position, Phil Harburger's words, that there is in the county. And so we've got to get people to understand what they're actually hiring for to make sure that we get the performance we need as a community. And so that is a big conversation we're having.
Let me ask, there have been a few attempts over the last 30 years or so at city-county consolidation.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
I believe former State Senator Jeff Wentworth had floated a bill years ago,
was
and Lyle Larson,
yeah.
State Representative Lyle Larson, had floated a bill, and it doesn't seem like anyone wants to give up their power, which I get. And every politician will say, well, look, I don't care about that, but it's the other guys that say no.
Yeah.
But do you see an opportunity in the short term to consolidate some, at least City of San Antonio and Bexar County services?
Absolutely, 100%. And in fact, those were some of the earliest conversations I had with Nelson when I came in as mayor. Like, look, I think we both agreed. He was a member of the Senate, I believe, during the Constitutional Convention, where we came just short. I think it's going to require that for us to get the bona fide consolidation, which I think would be better for taxpayers and efficient for our community. But regardless, it's a white whale. I think functionally we can get to some of that. And where we began during my tenure with Nelson is looking at functional areas of government that we could think about collaborating more and or potentially consolidating. The vast administrative functions of economic development. We've got animal care services. We've got, a new public health system. And again, not saying that we need to consolidate the two, but getting them to work symbiotically would be a huge step in the right direction. And then that's just the city of San Antonio and the county. Housing, creating a whole new housing strategy for the same area that the SHIP is working in, which was adopted by the county. So all these different systems. Let's stop, number one, creating new silos, but let's start attacking those others. But that doesn't take into account the other 26 municipalities or the potential of making effective emergency services. So there's a lot of opportunity there. I would suggest it's a worthy conversation. Nelson and I were working on that. COVID hit. And, to be candid, it's been very difficult to have those conversations when Nelson left. Just, again, not a whole lot of collaboration. My words.
But there were attempts?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, again, not to get overly political, but, Nelson and I met every week. More than that as county judge. I can count on one hand, maybe two, the number of times that happened in the next administration, not for lack of trying. Cancel meetings up and down, just not a lot of interest to do the cross-jurisdictional work that I think is necessary to find those efficiencies. We can do that. We should do that. To get back to the question, we should be doing that. It is the least we should be doing in an era of drawdown of resources, diminishing returns and economic activity so that we can get more throughput for the scarce resources that we do have when we're growing, transforming, needing infrastructure, et cetera.
You touched on housing, so I want to go back on some of your priorities as mayor. And is there a role as county judge to participate in some of those old priorities that were important to you?
Absolutely. Housing is at a crisis level everywhere. And in our region, we know housing is needed everywhere at all income levels, from the affordable subsidized housing all the way up to luxury housing. We need all of it in order to function properly. And so what we have to do is, number one, align ourselves. We've got so many different organizations that touch public sector or are entirely public sector that have resources to bear that are in some cases rowing in their own direction. And I mentioned again the what's happening in the downtown urban core. Now you've got the SHIP. Now you've got another housing strategy being developed without resources, by the way. We've got to work to align all those things. And then we've got to ensure that we are pooling our resources to work in coordination so those oars are rowing in the same direction at the right syncopation. The County Housing Authority, as well as Opportunity Home, should be working as brother and sister. Right now, they're not even fourth cousins removed. We've got to get our housing departments to be working under, a unified goal, vision, and we've got to get recognition that the county has already recognized a strategic housing implementation plan, and there's been hundreds of millions of dollars spent already to do that work. And so, yes, there is a lot of opportunity, a lot of resources that be pooled. There's a lot of creative energy in the housing space that we've got to make sure we're coordinating. The housing trusts, the opportunity potentially for bonding capacity from the ISDs to do housing work. So there's a lot of tools available, but as you know, unless we're using those tools in a coordinated way, we're not going to be able to fix the car.
That seems to be the only bipartisan issue. Everyone agrees we need more housing. And if you're elected judge, and certainly during your time as mayor, you've got to work with the legislature and to the, the federal government to some extent. And things have become certainly more partisan in Austin than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
So pivoting back over to the campaign, is there anything that has surprised you that you're hearing from folks on the street?
Not surprising. There has been a disquieting sense of dread about our politics. And I'm concerned that, not for my race, but just in general, people are starting to retreat from, being willing to publicly share their opinions, their thoughts, because of fear of being outcast. That's concerning. In terms of local politics, one thing that has surprised me is the level of concern people have for the status quo, but the discomfort of challenging it. And not everybody, of course. This is mostly inside the bubble folks, but we are never going to get past where we are in terms of always looking up at our peers unless we're willing to push the needle a little bit. And I always give the example of the airport. We wouldn't be building a new terminal, rebuilding the others, and building a new runway soon after that if we didn't have the audacity to say, you know what? We deserve world-class air service, and it's not just enough to long for it. Let's create a plan. And I'll still credit John Dixon for for being willing to answer the call and spend 6 some odd years doing it. But we got it together. So we can achieve our aspirations as a community. We deserve to achieve the aspirations we have in our community. We have the tools to ensure that we do if leadership at all levels is willing to take a step to challenge our comfort in status quo.
When we put out that we were going to interview you on an episode, we ask everyone to submit questions and what they want us to bring forward to you. And one of the consistent questions that we've had is why. It's kind of an elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Why are you running against Judge Sakai?
Yeah. Well, I'm not running against Peter Sakai. I'm running for the future of this county. And I believe strongly that my heart is here. Judge Sakai is a good and decent man. I admire his work on the Children's Court. But where we are today requires proactive leadership, requires vision, energy, and focus, requires a level of collaboration and 24/7 dogged determination to get past where we are. And frankly, we've been talking about the same issues that are plaguing the county right now 3 years ago, in terms of persistent case backlog and the jail conditions that are compromising public safety, in terms of our widening health access gap that is dragging down our ability to move past these cycles of poverty. In terms of the fact that we're growing at a fast clip, but we still don't have a vision or a plan for it to build the infrastructure and ensure that we're not building the slums of the next generation. All these things have been happening. We have similar values, Judge Sakai and I. We probably have a lot of the same ideas, but what we don't have is effective leadership to actually pursue action. And we are the result of our actions, not our ambitions. That's why I have enjoyed being mayor, because we've been able to put those ideas into play, some of them 30, 40 years old, but we finally got coalitions built to move this stuff forward. We've been talking about mass transit forever. Finally got it. We're finally getting it moving. We've been talking about the airport forever, finally getting it moving. The housing plan, I told you 30 years ago, Henry wrote that paper. We're finally doing that stuff because we were determined to do action. I am interested in action, and that's why I'm running for county judge. That's why I'm running for the future of this county. I love it, and I want other people to as well.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really great insight.
Okay, Mayor. So this is the point where we close out the podcast with some fun rapid fire questions. So are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. I think we touched on this, but early morning workouts or late night workouts?
Oh, neither. If I could have it at 3 o'clock every day, it would be great.
Fair. Favorite San Antonio spot?
50-yard line at the Alamo Dome when Frank Harris is leading us on a fourth quarter comeback.
Nice. That's a great answer. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
If we can teach our son good grammar and good manners, we'll be 99% ahead.
Hey, okay. Hidden gem more locals should know about?
Oh, these are tough.
Rob made them up. That's why.
KRTU FM 91.7, the best jazz radio station in the universe.
I was telling Rob that you and I have that in common. We both did radio. I also studied communications. I started my career in broadcasting, but did radio in college and loved it. Did you love it?
Oh, yeah. No, I was not into radio, but my last semester, I got them to agree to let me break format on a classic rock show at midnight to 2 on Wednesday mornings.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Fun. Favorite tourist attraction?
Oh, the Riverwalk.
You know, we keep hearing the Pearl. I'm glad you're bringing it back to the Riverwalk.
Yeah, well, okay, actually.
You can't change your answer now. Okay,
Jazz
go ahead.
Texas. That's the hidden gem.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good
That's
one.
where I send folks who want to see a different San Antonio.
Yeah.
Jazz Texas.
Last one. What excites you about the future of San Antonio?
The unjaded optimism based on evidence from the young people who are in college right now.
That's a great answer. I have one last one.
Okay.
So, UT San Antonio is becoming a rock star university. It's top 3 now in the state.
Yeah.
Doing amazing things. So you're a big fan, but you teach at Trinity. Those are like having your 2 favorite children. How do you balance that?
Yeah. UTSA is our flagship state university here. And so they are very much one of the brands of San Antonio, but not at the same level as Spurs, but that's who, when we build UTSA's brand to the world, we will continue to see San Antonio's brand rise. And I will say this, there was a lot of impacts to COVID, and keeping the morale of the community up is challenging when people have no sense of where the future is going. UTSA, under Jeff Traylor and with Frank under center, put this community on their back. In the time Spurs were rebuilding, but we had a team that really carried our emotions. UTSA being in the top 25, going on that bowl run for the first time, lifted the mood of this entire city, and I do not think it's separated from the health and well-being of the city. So to this very day, I tell Coach Traylor that, and Frank, you guys put us on your backs, and you helped us get through the pandemic.
That's great.
It's a great answer. Love it.
We'll close there. Mayor Ron Nirenberg, thank you so much for being on Breaking Ground SA, coming to you from the IBC Bank studio. You got to come back soon.
I'll be here. Tell me when, and we can crack open the afternoon stuff.
That's right. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. See you next time.